live. I am going to hop on tonight with Sam. You may know her from the Ultimatum Queer Love Season 1. She's going to hop on with me in a bit, and we are just going to jump in. We're going to talk about the ultimatum in the workplace and what that looks like, from going from anxiety to authenticity, and we'll find out which one she chose. But I think she just joined. Hi, I see a few others joining. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining us. All right, I got your request. Okay, I'm going to see if I can bring you. This is fun. Hi. How are you? Thanks for joining. Hello. I think I got.
Okay.
We did it.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Right before.
That's okay. I'm going to start to make this tea time because I usually have my tea ready for these calls. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I have mine in. Sorry, this is not very eco-friendly. But it's hot.
Yeah, is it like, 90 there right now?
Yeah, it is. So I have a fan going on right here, but luckily it's not that loud.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's beautiful here. It's like a beautiful fall day. I cannot complain.
Yeah, it's literally been months since I've gone live, so thank you for inviting me.
I'm excited. Like my new accountability buddy.
Yeah. No, this is great. But go ahead, and I kind of cut off your intros.
You actually did not. I did it, and then you logged in. But no, I'll go ahead. It's nothing formal, but I did want to just let everybody know. Welcome. Thanks for joining. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Britt. I'm a queer mindset coach. I work with LGBTQ women, helping them overcome stress and anxiety. And tonight I have Sam joining us. You may know her from the Ultimatum Queer Love Season 1. And so we've been hanging out. You're like a fun celebrity that I always forget about.
I'm still getting used to that.
I know. I'm like, what is the name of that show? I watched it. It was so good. But then I'm like, wait a minute. I know you so well from just like the spaces we hang out in that I remember when you said it the first time, I was like, yeah, I knew that. But it was like kind of the back of my mind.
Oh yeah, no, I'm definitely still getting used to it because I don't see myself as that still.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm glad to be in these spaces too, where it doesn't feel like, being like super in the spotlight.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I could only imagine, which we could talk about tonight as well, but I can only imagine what that would feel like, just, going from somebody who is just walking the world to like, no, you are somebody and now the world knows you. So even like, what does it look like now? Like, what is that like now?
I feel like we kind of stayed more on the down low, which in many ways is really nice. When I see people getting bombarded that are like through social media and stuff, I'm like so glad that that's not us. And so, yeah, it tends to be like a couple of people here and there who will recognize us and whenever we go out, and we're usually like masked up and everything. So they have to like recognize us from other things. And I'm always like, Aussie, stop talking. They can hear your accent from a mile away.
They know you.
Yeah, I'm like, I can get away with just like, breezing by, no problem. But you are a giveaway every time.
That's so funny.
Yeah, and it's been interesting, but I'm kind of I'm getting used to it sort of, and I'm just very like, I only bring up the show when it makes sense to do so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like I don't necessarily need to talk to you about this, but because this will maybe impact things, or maybe you should kind of know about this, then I'll bring it up very like, so my partner and I.
Well, I'm curious, like, because I mean, I know we were going to talk a little bit about sort of the ultimatum in the workplace and having anxiety and being authentic. And I am curious to even merge the two around that topic and that subject. But before we even get into the show portion of it, I'm curious to know, because I know you talked about on our last call when we were chit-chatting, you said you were
Yeah.
someone who struggled in the workplace and had anxiety around coming out. So I want to know a little bit about that before we even go into how do you go from
Yeah.
having anxiety in the workplace to now you're revealing yourself to the world. But
Yeah.
so tell me a little bit about that. Like what did you do for work before where you were like, okay, this is where I just kind of want to stay on the sort of lower key end of things.
Yeah. I feel like in many ways the show kind of came about because I was already on this journey,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't like, okay, this show came up and now I'm just going to be like out there because there's no really avoiding it if I choose to go through with this.
Yeah.
So I had already, like, I think a lot of people can probably relate to like not even understanding what queerness was or like being in the LGBT community. I think nowadays there's so much more content out there. You
Yeah.
can find representation virtually or in person if you seek it out. And I feel like back then it was still kind of like, when I went to high school, there were maybe some people who were questionable, but I still didn't really know what that meant.
Yep.
Or you may hear like, oh yeah, they're gay, but it still doesn't really like register.
Yeah,
So
yeah. You don't
I,
really know. I mean, I
yeah,
went
so,
to an all-girl Catholic school, so we just knew.
yeah,
That's why you go to an. I know it's like it defeats the purpose, but that's why you go to an all-girl Catholic.
yeah.
But
Well,
but yeah.
it's
So
really funny when I look back at some of my pictures from when I was younger, it's like more than half of us ended up being in the LGBT community. So we
wow.
all just like magnetized to each other without
Yeah.
knowing it until later. And it's like, oh, like they're queer now, they're queer, they're queer. We're the overwhelming majority. So I really think that, we did like just attract to each other somehow. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And so you came out in high school.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
So
Okay. Okay.
I still kind of was just peripherally around it. Like, I
Mhm.
literally only knew of two lesbians at the time when I was in high school, and they were not very nice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even then, like, my very first impression was like not very favorable. It wasn't until college that I started meeting a lot of openly queer people. And so that was like really new. But I was still very much in the questioning phase. Like, I was in a long-term relationship. I had only dated boys. I was going to say men, but really boys at that time.
men men children.
Yeah.
Men boys.
And I did a lot of exploring within college and after college, but yeah, I was with this person for 10 years. So I
Mhm.
was literally on that like get married, get a job, have kids, get a house together track. And like
Yeah.
most people who know me, like that's not me at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I am not for that whole traditional lifestyle, but like I was on that track for a while. And he supposedly knew that I was queer before I did. But yeah, probably just, yeah, there's just a lot of things you look back on.
Well, now
You're
I'm
like, that
curious.
makes sense.
So, what was that light bulb moment that made you go like, "Oh,
It was definitely in college.
okay,
I was surrounded by a lot of queer people.
yeah,
So that's when I had more conversations with them. I started understanding more. Like, I got to go to WeHo and meet a lot more like queer people and hang out with the LGBT community. But I was still always cast as like the straight girl, right? Like the straight girl with the boyfriend. And
you're
so,
just the ally."
yeah, but
Hmm.
not even that. It was almost like, as it like a lot of people who were going there at the time, it was like they were only looking for people to date. So I actually felt like more of an outcast. Like, I couldn't even just like be in those spaces hanging out and like exploring things. It felt very like, oh, you don't belong here, or like, oh, you're not worth talking to because you're not somebody that I can potentially date. And like, then there's all these like preconceived notions, and there's all of these, I think a lot of times within the LGBT community, it's like, this is where bi erasure comes in, or like, outcasting,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
felt that so
yeah.
strong at that time. And it's like, can't we even like hang out? Like, does it have to just
Hmm.
be you can potentially date me, or like I'm not worth even talking to? Like, yeah. So
It's
it wasn't the nicest
Yeah, it's
at
funny
the
you say
time.
that. I get a lot of people who come to me and it's the same thing. They're like, and they're almost embarrassed to say that they're bi.
Oh yeah.
And it's one of those things where I'm like, no, this is a welcoming place. Like if you're bi, if you're questioning it, it's okay.
Hmm.
Just be an ally, honestly.
Yeah.
As long as you fit into, hey, we love each other, we get along, I'm good with whatever you are. But yeah, I get a
Yeah.
lot of people like they'll say, oh, I'm bi, or I'm not sure, or
Hmm.
like the way that I notice people will downplay themselves, and I know
Yeah.
it's because they've been shunned in the community and they've been
Oh
sort
yeah.
of like outcast in the community. And so
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I always like to kind of talk about things almost like in a timeline fashion, because I feel like
Hmm.
I've identified as so many different things under the sun, and
Yep.
it's like, but that's okay. And especially at the time, I didn't really know what all these definitions meant. I didn't know what these identities were. So I'm like, oh, this one sounds the most right now. Oh, this one sounds the most right now. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, no, when I was like younger, even though I knew that if I had the language, I would have identified as, you know, a queer person much earlier
Hmm.
on. But I considered that as like my straight years. my,
I hear you. And
like
that's the
I
thing.
was.
I mean, it's language is always evolving. And so
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know, right? And
Hmm.
that's what I tell people, like in the queer community, this isn't this, I mean, queer, if you ask like a baby boomer, you may have they may feel offended if you use the word queer, but it's been
Yeah.
reclaimed just in these last few
Yeah.
years. And so it's the language that maybe didn't exist back then. We're getting the language for it now, and who knows what
Right.
will even start to just progress even beyond like this year, within the next
Right.
5 years. Like
Right.
these words may be, just like what do you say? So
Yeah.
so yeah, it is ever evolving.
Yeah, and I think that that's how I've been also able to relate to a lot of different people, because I've like, even when I considered myself bisexual, it was more because I was like, okay, well, I dated like boys and men for, 20 years.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I just literally, when you ask me, I always think it's the funniest thing, because I literally did have a light bulb moment where I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to date men anymore. Like I literally had that moment. And I mean cis men. Like I just
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
feel like that's my future. Like I don't think I'm meant to be with them. And that's when I broke it off with my partner of 10 years at the time. And it was like, I don't want to waste your time. Like this is what
Hmm.
I feel so strongly within me. And like you're still young. I want you to have that time to be able to like date and like meet people. And it's there's so many things. I feel like I can just go off onto so many tangents right now, but there were so many of those moments where I'm just like, okay, this is like, I know this to be true, there's no point in wasting any more time, or
Yeah.
I'm just going to be stuck here.
Well,
um
I will say there was someone earlier in the comments and she wrote, and I have to agree with her. She said, I was so impressed with you and how you showed up and how much you grew in your boundaries and speaking your truth. And even just you saying that now, um, that's what I'm hearing is you've been so like your boundaries, the way you speak up, the way you share your truth is impeccable. I think that was one of the things that I admired about you most when I was watching the show. I was like, wow, this isn't a person that's extremely grounded and knows how to show up in a secure way and really speak
yeah,
up for yourself, or
yeah,
or speak your boundaries in a way that is effective and speaks to people's listening. So I
yeah,
agree with that. I really appreciated you saying that. And just you saying this right now, like this is a way that you can present this, like for people who are still in relationships with
right,
men, or in relationships with women, and whatever. But if it's not working out, like what is a healthy way that you can have that
right, right,
conversation?
right. And I think it's funny too, because I've definitely had situations where it I stayed longer than I should
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying that I haven't, but it was like a leading up to point. And the moment that I was so sure of, how I felt about the situation, I was like, okay, I just have to do something about it now. Like, because it's not just me who's being impacted. Like, if I already feel like this, then this is going to impact this person if I already know.
Yeah.
And it was actually during COVID. Well, this is the next partner. So back about a little bit. So I did go through that phase where I did identify as bisexual for several years, and I explored a lot, and I was really fortunate that my partner at the time was very open to allowing me to explore my identity. And I was able to kind of like branch out and have some level of freedom, but without having to do it in like a non-ethical way, And so there was always like communication around it. Like, this is how I'm feeling. This is the situation. So we talked about it.
Nice.
But I think it's like having to get over that fear, right? Like, that's the hardest part is like, can I trust that this person isn't just going to leave me? Am I going to trust that I'm good enough? Like, I was just so attached to external influence in terms of like my security and my self-esteem and my value, and all of that was always so attached to like external things, external validation. So I've really been on a journey of like bringing that back.
And I'm curious to know, like, what have you done to start to get that validation internally?
Yeah, for me, I feel like a lot of it was my spiritual journey, which I did not understand at all. Like, I know I was spiritually inclined. Like, I bought my first deck, my first tarot card deck, like in 2015. But I wasn't exactly surrounded by anyone who was into that. It was still a lot of like, ooh, that's like witchcraft, Like, it wasn't anything I could really explore. And so I like didn't really do much with it. And it really wasn't until COVID happened when I was in this online space that I started to meet a bunch of queer women, including Aussie, including Charmaine, who was my friend who was featured on the show as well. Like, we all met through this like women's LGBT group online.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So I've made some really good friends that were all virtual that I've never met in person. And yeah, that was when Charmaine and I actually met for the first time in person ever, was like on the show. So that was like a whole thing.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
But really, it wasn't until I started meeting all of these spiritually inclined people that I felt safe enough to explore that. And so some people say, therapy first, but for me, I needed the spiritual first. And that was my gateway to eventually work with a therapist who was spiritual and into tarot and into human design and all the things. And so she was perfect.
Wow, that's amazing. All the things you're doing right now.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
And so I know you mentioned that, so while you're exploring yourself, while you were coming out, so you were still working at this time. And so when you came out, did you just stay in the closet at work, or what was that like navigating that?
Yeah. So at that time, I believe this is when I considered myself a lesbian, because again, I was like,
yep,
going through told me
flow.
I was never going to date men ever again. So does that make me a lesbian?
Yeah. There's a new word to try on.
So that's when I identified as a lesbian. And so this particular partner, though, was not out. And so I had gone through like my own coming out journey with myself first. And again, my past partner helped me with that. And then coming out to my family, coming out to my friends. And so went through all these journeys, and luckily I felt safe enough or comfortable enough to come out to just a couple of people within the workspace, but in a very closed container. So it was like I trusted them, and it wasn't anything that I was like blasting out in the open. I was also doing a ton of networking, and so this was like chambers of commerce and random networking groups, and I was participating in all these spaces. And I have a better understanding of it now, but a lot of them would have been very, like, a lot of Republicans, a lot of older white folks. And so
Yeah.
I didn't feel comfortable sharing that with everyone. And that's where I think a lot of the anxiety and having like multiple lives that I had to kind of live simultaneously. And so I always try to explain or describe to people that it's like it goes so much more beyond anxiety, right? Because anxiety, I feel like if anxiety is like this, when you're in a constant state that doesn't end anytime you walk out of your house or like have any type of presence of not only questioning whether or not people are going to like reject me or accept me or whatever, but also being the cause of potentially outing my partner. So that was just like level on top of level of anxiety and constant like just being on high alert all the time. So
yeah, your nervous system is constantly trying to protect you. And I always ask myself that question, and like what I'll tell clients is, am I safe? It's less about anxiety and it's more about safety. And when I think about coming out, like, you know, we can all say like, when did you come out? But you're always coming out. Like I'm still coming out to this day. And you can find me on social media and all these other platforms, but you know, I'm the queer coach, but even then I'm very discerning about who I share that with. Like I may say, oh yeah, I coach women around stress and anxiety, because if I don't know you, I'm going to conveniently leave out the LGBTQ part.
Right.
So if I travel to another country, I have to assess, is it safe for me to come out? Is it safe for me to be myself? And so when I think of anxiety, I correlate that, like you said, that's the small container, but the bigger container is, where does my safety land?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think I got more bold as time went on, and I kind of like
where did that come from?
Yeah, like
was it the tarot readings and you're like, you know what, screw these Republican white men, I'm just
But the thing is, like, I honestly feel in retrospect, if I had told them, I really don't think that they would have judged me as harshly as I thought. Now, I don't think that that's the situation all the time. But I feel like I want to believe that. And I can never know. Like, that ship has sailed. But I want to believe that the people that I did build certain connections with, they would have left it, you know, behind closed doors. Like it wouldn't have, I don't think, impacted me directly. But I don't think that was part of my journey for that to happen. So when COVID happened, that was literally like my safety net. And that's kind of when I started to decide, like, okay, I don't have to actually see these people and deal with what that looks like to have this conversation in person. And that's when I literally made it my mission to put rainbows on like all my backgrounds.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So apparent across all my social media. I was like, I just want people to know who I am before anything. And then we don't have to have that awkward conversation or me questioning, like, okay, they literally just asked me how my weekend was. And I went to very, like, I don't know, Pride, or something very gay. Like, what do I tell them? Oh, I just, like, had fun. It was cool.
And so what was that? So were you doing, when did you go on the show? Was that after COVID?
Filming was 2021.
Okay, so right after.
It came out in 2023.
Okay, so you're already starting to come out, and then you just went all in.
Yeah.
Talk about, like, so anxiety, like you said, is here. That would make, like, my anxiety would go, and I'm like, okay, I'm free, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Your life is in the spotlight.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
That's a great question.
Like, how? And just knowing you and your personality, I think I've always wanted to ask you this question, so this is perfect time. How? How did that happen?
You know, I think it's funny, and this may feel like a tangent, but I promise it has a purpose to it. But I feel like people talk about, say, like courage or being fearless or doing things that would be like adventurous. I think I'm actually a very adventurous person, but in a way that is not like society's definition of adventurous, which
Yeah.
is like traveling and bungee jumping off of a bridge and,
Yeah, those are things I would
like
do.
stuff like that, right? And
Yeah.
for me, I think I'm just more adventurous on like a personal level where like I think a lot of my friends and family have always, or mainly friends, have said like, oh, I'm like living vicariously through you, or when I talk to them they're like, oh, what are you doing now? Like every time we would talk they never know what wild thing like out of the blue thing that I just did. And I think it's, for me, I've just gotten really used to being really uncomfortable and like pushing myself in a way that I think a lot of people are really uncomfortable to go
Yeah.
towards. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know how else to describe it other than like it's a different type of adventurous.
Yeah, it is. It sounds like what I'm hearing you say is it's more of the self-development adventure
I think so.
of growth, because growth is uncomfortable. As much as people are like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I want to grow, it's like, do you want to be uncomfortable and probably crying and kicking and screaming for the rest
Oh
of your life?
yeah.
Because that's what growth is,
Yeah.
and that is a different type of discomfort.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a very different type of
It's
discomfort.
visceral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but at the same time I feel like all the things I've really become really comfortable with, it's because I just at some point forced myself to do it.
Yeah.
And networking is literally one of those things.
I
Like,
was about to ask you about
oh
that.
yeah.
Yeah, like your networking. So for those of you that don't know, I met Sam, and one of the things we were talking about was I just come back to Chicago, and I asked her like how you met all these people, and she goes, "Oh, I network," and I was like, my mouth dropped open. I was like, "Huh?" And she's like, "Yeah," and I'm just like, "Okay, if you like this soft-spoken, seem very quiet person can go out, seem very shy. I don't know. This is what I thought of you. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's all
Yeah.
true." But I'm
Yeah.
like, if you can network, like, so can I. And so Sam was the first person that encouraged me to reframe my mindset around networking. Because I was like, I don't want to do
Yeah.
it. I hate it. And then went to my first networking event, sat in my car for like an hour, like, don't want to go inside, almost left, and
Yeah.
went in and made wonderful, wonderful friends. So that was
Yeah.
my comfort crushing challenge. And I thank you for that
Oh
every
yeah.
single day.
Yeah. I like Aussie and I would joke all the time. I'm like, I promise you we would not have met if we did not meet virtually.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because Aussie is a major extrovert. And unfortunately, most people don't get to see this right now, but eventually one day it will come out. But Aussie's a major extrovert, and I'm definitely more on the introverted side. And I'm like, you don't understand how much it takes for an introvert to go out and do things. Like,
Yeah. That's a
people,
lot.
like, do you know how many barriers I had to cross in order for us to meet in person? Like, it would be so many. I have to decide to go multiple times. I have to get ready. I have to convince myself to leave the house, to then drive the car, get there in the parking lot, leave the car, then decide to open the door and not just stay in the corner.
The mind of an introvert.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a lot of steps to be able
That
to overcome
is.
to meet you in person.
Yes.
And then you're an extrovert being loud. I would stay away from you. So we had to meet online.
A happy medium.
Yeah, but really, like when I think people think I'm an extrovert on occasion, like depending on the situation, because I can actually be very social, very like I can chat away and I can be comfortable in front of people, but I'm very sensitive to vibrations and energies of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the space itself does not feel comfortable, even more so. It's just like every insecurity floods in. Like, I
Yeah.
really just want to hug the wall. I don't want to talk to anybody. Maybe I'll pick out one person who seems like they're standing by themselves
Yeah.
and I will talk to them and only them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm more of an ambivert, and nobody believes that about me, because I will say the same thing. I'm like, I can tend to get really shy in rooms, and people are like, you shy? No. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can
Yeah.
happen. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can take a lot for me to work the nerve to get the 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 like chutzpah to walk up to a person or
Oh
talk to
yeah.
them.
Oh
That's
yeah.
where a lot of my anxiety will come in of like, oh my gosh, I start to get
Oh
in my
yeah.
head and it's like, okay, just get out of your head and go talk to people. So
Yeah.
how do you overcome that? What made you so great at going out and meeting people and networking
Yeah.
and I mean dating? Like that's how you met Aussie. So tell the people how.
Yeah, I think I really just I don't know how else to say it other than I forced myself. Like I knew what I wanted, or I felt like I needed to do something different, or that there was like one thing standing in my way. And from past history, I'm like it always worked out in the end.
Yeah.
And I think when and obviously we talked about human design before, and like for me, it's really about receiving invitations to do major things. And when I'm making these decisions. And so when I was originally doing networking and I would do them because I just like found things online, those were the most uncomfortable ones that I ever went to. And I went to a lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just like sit there. I wouldn't even talk to people all the time, but I think also on an energetic level, they just weren't a match for my energy.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I would just go for the content. I'm like, okay, I don't really need to meet anybody, but I might get inspired by the person who's talking, or I might meet somebody to connect with. And so most of those didn't really pan out. But for the Chamber of Commerce, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and getting my like promoting myself, that was actually somebody that I knew through. So I did drumming, Japanese drumming, and so I was in a group.
Wow.
Yeah, I did that for a long time. And one of the guys there, him and his mother did a lot of volunteer work with the city, and he's the one who suggested it to me. So that's when I decided to go. And I met a lot of great people there. And so I just kept showing up. And then by showing up, I started to build relationships with people. I got to know them. And then it would get less and less uncomfortable because now I'm building my own community there. So I'd like to say if it's really, really uncomfortable, it might just not be the right group. And I think that's what happened for a lot of it. And one of those groups that I chose, the networking wasn't what I was meant to do. I actually went there because I saw on their message board that there was a nonprofit that was looking for volunteers. And I decided to go volunteer and help out high school students. And I ended up working with them for 2 years until COVID happened and all of the programming kind of stopped, but it wasn't even for the networking. So I kind of just started like testing out a lot of things, and the places that felt safe, that felt comfortable, that I felt welcome, then I would just keep showing up and would just kind of scale from there.
And I love that you say that, because I'm hearing several things. I'm hearing you had an intention. Like even if it wasn't the group for you, your intention at that point was maybe I won't talk to somebody. Maybe I'll just go for the content. So there was always a clear intention. And then you would intuitively check the vibe, check the energy of the room. What felt safe or right for you. And it sounds like you were able to navigate that and decide from there whether or not you wanted to show up in that space. And then if you felt like, okay, this is a cool group, or you could do your drumming, which by the way, that sounds amazing. I really want to hear your Japanese drumming. But like, if it's something that you potentially had a connection with, then you would keep going back. And that's where those relationships were built.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this is like just a collection of experiences that I just kind of hold in my like filing cabinet brain. And I'm like, okay, I remember this person said this and this is how it applies. And one of the first people that I met when I went to the chamber was a past chamber president. And he gave me the best advice that I needed at that time, which was keep showing up, because that's how you build the relationships. Too many people think they can show up one time and some amazing thing's going to happen from that one time, and then they tell themselves that it wasn't for them or it didn't work. So I've just built this habit of trying things out until it feels like, okay, yeah, this is not going to work. So I try my best to do things for at least a year if I can. And so it's like a constant show up. And
Yep.
even when I was in finance and in sales and all of that, like I started to understand my patterns even with that. Like I needed to stay with things closer to 2 years to understand if it was right for me or not. So
Makes
it
sense.
was
Yeah.
like committing to figure out whether it was right for me and not just deciding off of some, shallow statistics or whatever.
That
So.
makes sense. I mean, it's kind of like dating. Like they usually say at that 2 year mark, you're deciding whether or not you
Mm-hmm.
want to stay with this person long term or not. So it's
Oh yeah.
really giving yourself that time to figure out, does this connection work? Is this right for me? How do I feel?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that makes
And Aussie and
sense.
I were together a year and a half when filming happened.
Ah, so you're right, coming up on that mark.
Yeah. Well, yeah, at that time. So it was kind
Yeah.
of like, I guess we just had other people help us, or a lot of people, all right, like along for that journey. And we just celebrated 5 years
Oh,
in
wow.
May. So
Congratulations.
yeah, it's been a journey.
It always is.
It has been a journey. And yeah, I think even just going back to some of the like LGBT experiences within the workplace, I think that because I kind of went through a lot of those experiences myself, that's where I then kind of set that intention that I was also going to be more open for other people as well. Because I had already figured out who my safe people were to get to the point of being open and not caring at all within certain workspaces. And it's really funny. I was actually invited to to give like a little blurb for the company's newsletter that got sent out to whoever was subscribed. It was like an LGBT related one.
Mhm.
And this is partially where some of my advocacy started. And they asked about just a few of us, can we give some thoughts for the newsletter? And everyone else's was like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, we should support the LGBT community because we're all family and we should love each other. Like all those kinds of things. And mine
Yeah.
was just like, we need to support the LGBT community because our communities are under attack and we need we need to support them because they need it. And it was a lot more just like the real stuff where
Yep,
everyone else
yep.
was so like light and like love and stuff. And I'm like, no, like our communities need help. And because of that, I actually had someone who was in Texas who emailed me and reached out and said, like, thank you so much because I'm alone in like my whole office. And, it was really nice to see you write that. And I felt less alone in that. And so I've been able to do that within certain networking spaces as well, started putting that in my presentations. And so certain people who maybe were not out or they were still questioning or felt a little bit more scared, I'm like, I'll be the first one.
That's huge. Yeah, yeah. And I think we often forget too that you have the folks that are out and they're proud and it's like, yay, that's great for you. But I mean, for me personally, especially when I was living in Houston, majority of my friends weren't out. Like,
Yeah.
and nor were my clients. Like I had clients in Houston and they were working with me, but and they were, working on things like overcoming shame and dating and things like that. But the hardest part was coming out in the workplace because still down there, you could get fired for being LGBTQ plus.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in certain other parts of the country where people don't think about that, like that's still a valid issue. That's still a thing down
Mm-hmm.
there. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's so beneficial for people to have those spaces where they're seen and they're heard
Right.
and they're allowed to
Right.
be themselves when they can't show up at work. And again, going back to that safety conversation, they're not safe enough to come out and be
Mm-hmm.
themselves and be authentic.
Yeah, and I think I recognize that. And
Yeah.
so I've tried to make it very known of like, let me be one of those safe spaces. And
Love
so
that.
even in ways that I've seen it, I've had a handful of like parents of LGBT children who felt comfortable to share with me, or even like a niece or a nephew. And we've been able to kind of talk about it. And I think because I've also done a lot of work in terms of like DEI certification, like that was so important for me, and networking within coaching and DEI type spaces. And so
Hmm.
I've kind of develop certain language as well that I think is really important, that not just anybody off the street wants to like talk about all these things, but I try to be very mindful of like, this is my experience, or this is what I've come to understand through conversations, and it may be different. And so I think those things sometimes can be a little underrated of how important it is to like add those little things just to remind them like, this is my experience, or this is, you know, other people's experiences that I've talked to firsthand, but that doesn't mean that's going to be exactly the same. But if you want to just talk or ask me things that you feel too scared because you might like say the wrong thing and offend somebody and get yelled at, like ask me. I will not yell at you.
Yeah.
I will
You're
help
so
you.
easy to talk to. I love it. Very, very compassionate person. That's what I appreciate most about you, actually. Just
Thank
the way
you.
that you show up and you hold space. You hold space very well for people.
It's been a journey.
Especially for me. So maybe I can't talk for everybody, but for me, you've held space.
It's been a journey. It's been a journey. I can't say I've always been like this, but I'm glad.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful journey to be on. And I'm glad that you're on it.
Yeah,
And so I'm
you.
curious, as we're coming up on time, like what would you say right now to somebody who's listening who is maybe afraid to be themselves and come out, whether that's at work or in relationships? What advice would you give them?
I would say what I found the most important thing is the self-acceptance part.
Yeah.
Before anything else, right? Like, regardless of who accepts you externally, do you accept yourself? Right? Regardless of who may say certain things, or, you know, whether or not you feel safe, is all of that, can you access that internally first? I think that that's always the most important thing. And then I feel like sometimes, not always, but sometimes that need to like come out or make yourself known kind of lessens over time. Because I would say like most people would consider me passing, in the sense that like you wouldn't just like assume that I'm queer, which can work for or against me depending on the situation. Like, if I'm in a non-queer space, then yes, it can protect me and keep me more safe. And when I'm in queer spaces, sometimes that was something that was really challenging because I didn't feel like I belonged in the queer spaces. And so I think the more I started to accept myself, it was like it didn't matter whether I was in either of those spaces. I could just be and not be desperate or like clinging for people to acknowledge me or recognize me. So I feel like that's, if I could sum it all up into one thing, that would be what I would say.
I love that. It's a beautiful summation. Definitely. I totally can appreciate that. Definitely that self-acceptance, and that's key for everything, right? For everything in life. And so no, I appreciate you sharing that and coming on and just talking a little bit more about your experience. And I definitely want to do this again. This has been fun as usual. I love talking to you. And
Same.
And so for anybody else out there, if you are looking for more support, I'm Britt. I'm a mindset coach. So I do help a lot of women with the coming out process, especially with stress and anxiety around coming out, just being in the workplace, dating, navigating relationships, all of those things. So feel free to reach out. And then I also have a free guide for anybody who wants to just have basic steps of what can you do now. So if you're struggling in the workplace, if you have anxiety, you're struggling to just show up with, in your confident self, please reach out to me. It's a guide to take you from being an imposter to being more confident in who you are. And you can just DM me the word guide and I will send it to you, and just free of charge, send you the link. Just DM me guide. But Sam, it was lovely hanging out with you and having you on and just sharing and learning a little bit more about your journey. Because I know we've talked a lot, but this has all just been so great to hear just these other different nuances and perspectives that you bring. And I always love what you have to say and your wisdom and everything. So thanks for hanging out with me.
Yeah, we should definitely do this again. I feel like there's so much more for us to unpack and so many directions we can go.
I agree. Yeah, we can definitely set up another time. I'm here every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central, and if you have another free Monday evening, I would love to have you on again.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Sounds good. This
Awesome.
was great.
We
Thank
can
you.
even hop over to the other platform. I won't say it out loud, but we can even hop over to the other one sometime.
Yeah, sounds good.
To
Well,
the
this was
team.
so nice. Thank you for helping
Yes.
to break me out of my not going live for a long time.
You're so welcome. That's what I'm here for. This is
Yeah.
a thank you. You got me out into the real world and networking, and I'm getting you back into the online world.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for coming and tuning in. This was a
Yes,
lot of
thanks
fun.
everybody. Thanks for joining. And I will download this and put it on our page, and I'll share it with you as well, so you
Sounds
can share it with your
great.
community. All right, take care,
Perfect. All
everybody.
right.
Have a good
Bye
evening.
everyone.
Bye.
Respect.
Yeah.
If I